can so hear the words. It was, well, I guess that love just wasn't enough.
Oof.
And I will never forget that. And that in itself stunned me into silence in that moment, because for me, love is all there is.
Hazel Evans, welcome.
Hello.
So, is my mic on?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to introduce you as one of the prophecy walkers. Hazel Evans is a mentor of the Deep Feminine. We're going to ask her questions on this. We've been trying to understand how to share our story and share who we are. And we've decided to put Hazel on the spotlight, and she's ready to run away and squirm her way out of this one. So I've strapped her down, and she is tied to the floor, so she cannot move. She's given me a list of questions to ask her, and I'm not going to ask any of them. She wanted me to ask her about sharing her voice, the witch hunt of the medicine woman, and the speaking of truth. So we're going to ignore all of those. Brilliant.
This is excruciating.
Yeah, I bet. So the reason Hazel is struggling is because Hazel comes from a background of narcissistic abuse, two narcissistic marriages, and she has been taught how to kill her own talent, to silence herself, and to blame herself. Isn't that right, Hazel?
That is right, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to explore the deep depths of that, as if you weren't squirming enough, and how that makes you such a brave woman. So, when I first met you in Holland, when the world was going to shit in 2020, my life was also going to shit, and I met you when your life had just, the shit had hit the fan. Would I be correct in
That's right.
completely underestimating how badly your life had hit the fan? So I will speak for Hazel, and then we will ask Hazel to clarify, because Hazel's very afraid to talk about this next topic. Hazel lost her mind. Hazel had experienced such a deep wounding of her heart for the second time, such deep narcissistic abuse, that she lost everything, and she ended up in a caravan on a farm in the middle of Holland on her own. And then she started during the middle of a thunderstorm, between starting in September and leading for a few months up to when I met her in December. She started to die every evening and wake up alive, thinking she was going to die multiple times. We'll get you to clarify this. And she started to get visions of the... Actually, I'm not going to say, I'm going to let you explain that. But what I wanted to focus on is you said to me how you were laughing and crying at the same time, and you picked up some crackers and you got the message that you were going crackers, that you were losing your mind. So I want you to retell start from the shed where you were first given the news that your marriage was over.
What do you mean, the shed?
You said to me that you were drawing.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then your husband came in and
Yeah.
told you it was over.
Yeah. So I was drawing a portrait as part of my oracle deck, and it was a doula, death and life doula, and I was drawing her portrait, and I was also writing some poetry about unity consciousness at the time. And so my husband at the time walked in and said that he wanted to stop the fight. And I realized in that moment that there was two options there. Either stop the internal fight so that love could happen, or stop the fight that was happening between us and end the relationship. And I was just in complete silence, and I could literally see a split in consciousness. And this was September 2020. And I could literally see it was like one side was dark and one side was light. And I could see the split in choice. And I could literally see what everyone had been talking about through the whole of the lockdown, and the different timelines that people have now chosen or not chosen to go into.
Yeah.
I could literally see that.
Yeah, I'm going to guide you on that because I want to keep us on the right timeline, because I know how big this conversation is. But first, I want you to explain to everyone, because I had trouble accepting this when I first met you, is that you're an oracle, and I didn't know what that meant. And you've always had trouble sharing that with people.
Yeah.
What is it for you? What does it mean to be an oracle?
Well, I guess it means that I channel consciousness, channel pure consciousness, universal wisdom. And I haven't really known. I've always known that I've done that because I've always been an artist throughout my whole life, and I've never been able to escape that.
I don't think you're an ordinary artist, Hazel.
No. No, I've never been able to make art for the sake of reproducing stuff. It's always been an intrinsic part of my journey. And I think so when I was drawing this picture of the doula and this creation of the oracle deck, I'm actually foretelling, and I'm connecting past lifetimes with future timelines in this moment. And that's why this oracle deck I'm creating is so powerful.
Yeah.
And I'm actually living every moment of it. I'm living every portrait of it. So when that moment came, and it was over, that was really the crack. And I knew that, and this is truth, I knew that he was choosing for fear and separation. I didn't know that I was victim to narcissistic abuse at the time. And I knew that I was choosing the light timeline. I knew that I was choosing for love and unity in that moment. And that was the split. And that's why there had been fighting in our relationship. And that's, I mean, we can talk about this in other relationships. That's why people don't get on, because they're trying to bridge a gap.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go into that in more depth. I wanted to stay on the energy of what it means to be an oracle, because I think it's important when we discuss the lead up to how we met. So the way I see you behave, and when I first met you, to you it's a natural gift that you were born with. And I've seen it in other women, and they're very nonchalant about it, and I found you to be quite nonchalant about it. Do you understand how great your gift is?
Probably not. And I think I have spent a lifetime denying it and avoiding it. You know, I grew up in an atheist, scientific, academic household, and I am the black sheep of the family, and it's very difficult, and it has been very difficult for me to not believe that my gifts were being oversensitive, all of that stuff that they talk about, empaths and all of that. But it's bigger. It's bigger than that.
It's much bigger than that, isn't it?
Mm.
It's the way I understand it after knowing you is you receive source guidance, pure how do I say? Pure source guidance, so pure consciousness from source.
Yeah.
Which is quite, I would say, very rare. And the reason we're talking about your gifts is after he decided to separate with you, you moved out and you went to live on a farm in a mobile home / caravan. And you from September 2020, you started to receive deep visions.
I think because I'd already been on a journey of awakening and divine feminine, and through lots of different modalities already, I'd started doing a lot of inner work. And I knew that when this happened, I had been trained in several leadership trainings that when the shit hits the fan, that's when you do the work. That's when you do the inner work. So when I was on my own, I knew I had a choice. I don't do the work later when I feel okay, when I've got my house established or my job established again. No, I do the work now. And I knew that that's what most people don't do, because we're taught to, comfort ourselves before we do the work. So nobody actually does the work. But because everything was getting stripped away and there was really not much choice because we were going into lockdown and all of that, it's like, wow, now's the time. And I had no other choice. And I saw it simultaneously as the most challenging thing that I'd go into, but also the biggest gift.
So explain the first message you received.
Well, I can't remember. I have to go through my diaries, but
the message of divine union.
Yeah, I started receiving through some medicine work in a sister circle. I started receiving one time this coding, literally this vision of this new coding for the divine feminine, the divine union. And lots of people think of it in that simplistic terms of the Vesica Pisces, where the two become one. But my oracle deck's there if you want. I can show you pictures. But I received this other vision, and it's like it came down from the universe, and I was holding it in my hands. I was like, what is this? It said, this is the coding of the new divine union. It's at the beginning. And
actually, keep talking.
It's on the altar there.
Oh, we'll forget about it then.
Yeah. So I drew this and I realized, oh my God, it's not just one thing, it's multidimensional. It's the alchemy of fire and water, it's the alchemy of earth and air, it's the medicine wheel, it's the goddess wheel, it's Avalon, it's Egypt, it's Lemuria, it's Atlantis. It's all these timelines happening simultaneously. And it's the rose and the sword and the three lines of consciousness and the pyramids and all of this was unlocking. And then I went into this process of all of these timelines unlocking simultaneously, and I could see how they were all connected, and I could see how civilizations had failed, but now what we were going into, we had the opportunity through divine union, through the truth of the purity of love, to understand what that was, and through that portal overcome and walk into succeeding as a higher level of consciousness in I don't want to say society, in
The collective.
in the collective, yeah.
Yeah.
And I could see that that was possible. But what really got me was I was being shown by the universe, your mission, part of my purpose was divine union. And here I was in this breakup, which was before you came along, and I knew that it was narcissistic abuse. It was so traumatic because I was constantly, for those 3 months, I was constantly unknowingly being gaslit every time I spoke to anybody from my old life or to him or anything. So I was constantly being betrayed and being opened by that trauma, like on a daily and a weekly basis, that I had to process on my own. And through that betrayal and that cracking open, because the betrayal opens and cracks open your heart, I also knew from the work, the women's work that I'd done, this is the moment when women close their hearts down forever and they don't have relationships again with men, and they don't trust men again. And I knew that that would turn me into the bitter archetype of the crone when I come to that later on in my life. And I said, this is not going to happen with me. I've received the coding of the divine union. I've received this wisdom because of I've been cracked open and I've chosen for love and unity. I dedicated and devoted myself to whatever it takes to get through this.
Yeah.
But to keep my heart open.
And when this coding and all of this was coming through, you tried to tell people, didn't you?
Yeah.
And did they listen?
No.
Why do you think they didn't listen truthfully?
Jealousy?
Yeah. And we'll talk about that. But
it's difficult to say.
Yeah.
Because we've worked through that to understand what that energy
Yeah,
actually is.
it's unconscious, karma-related akashic jealousy, essentially, because you were ready to receive that coding and they chose not to.
Yeah.
And so when I wanted to focus on the details, because I think the details are fascinating, is that when this started happening to you, you essentially were having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so your body was reacting differently to your mind, and your heart was reacting one way. So you were split, you were shattered. Talk us through the process of the dying every night. Talk us through how it felt, and talk us through the visions you spoke of. You spoke of spaceships, you spoke of the characters, you spoke of all the different civilizations. Speak through what you can remember.
Okay, so I'll start with the dying process first, and I guess that links back to the oracle picture of the doula, because I realized, that I was in a process of birthing myself. And then I'd also remembered back to when I'd sat in satsang, with a guru or spiritual teacher, and all of them at some point had spoke about the moment when they became enlightened. It's like I sat under a tree for days and cried, and then I had an epiphany. It's like all these sort of memories were coming back, and here I was, like crying for days. Like I wasn't even crying about the relationship. I was crying about something so much bigger and so much greater, this deep betrayal of life itself. it wasn't about the relationship, like, at all, almost, you know, because what was going through was so much bigger. And I it occurred to me because I realized, wow, I actually feel okay in the mornings, and in the evenings I literally go into terror. And this went on, yeah, it was about for 3 months. Every single day I realized that then I was being born again in the morning, and throughout the day I would get older, and by the evening I would die again. And then at first it was terrifying, and I didn't know what was going on, and I thought that I was going crazy, because it does it. If you don't know what's going on, it it leads you to think that you are going mad. And I could really understand that this is where people don't know how to manage themselves. People don't know what is happening when they have a breakdown.
And they
think,
end up in an asylum.
yeah,
Yeah.
they end up in an asylum, or people being saying that they're bipolar or ADHD or whatever other labels they want to have.
Yeah.
And there was one evening, it was raining outside, and I hadn't eaten for days because I wasn't able to eat through this process. I was sleeping like only 4 hours a night. And then I was like, oh my God, I better eat something. So I ended up getting these crackers, and it started raining outside. And then I was sitting in the corner, and all of a sudden I felt like really alone, like I am alone. There is nobody here who can help me. Nothing. And in darkness, and I was eating these crackers, and then I was having this memory of this, this guru talking about going mad, and that's the moment that they get enlightened. And I was like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be my moment. It was like, are you mad to think about that? Well, I'm eating crackers. Oh, going crackers. Oh my God, I'm losing my mind, and I'm dying, and I'm eating crackers, and I'm going crackers. Oh my God, I'm eating crackers, and I'm going crackers. And I was like sitting in this corner of this caravan, like in this state, realizing, wow, if somebody comes in right now, they're gonna think I'm going absolutely mad, and they would
because you were
take me
laughing,
away.
weren't you?
Yeah, because I started simultaneously laughing and crying, full on, at the same time. And it was extraordinary. And because I'd heard about this from, other teachings and satsang and whatever, and I thought, whoa, this is actually true. This happens, and this is actually, trust the process, Hazel. Trust the process, because this is deep, deep purification. Even though it feels like you're losing your mind, that's actually what you want. You're essentially losing and shedding those old parts of you. And I knew that was what was happening. I was losing and shedding those parts of me that enabled me to have had that life before. So I knew I was in a deeply, deeply transformational process, and I had to be my greatest guide through that. I had to hold myself.
Yeah.
And I had to, because I worked very deeply with the wheel of the year, I literally was implementing and embodying the wheel of the year every single day.
You mean the pagan wheel of the year?
Yeah. Like the goddess wheel, the pagan wheel, the wheel, the cycles of nature. I was applying it every single day, because I was in that process of life, death, rebirth every single day for like 3 months.
The way you described it to me is you were almost in like an obsessive state of control.
What do you mean?
With the way you spoke and received everything, to the point where everything meant something.
Well, I think what happened was that everything became alive.
Yeah, that's what I mean through animism.
Yeah. Everything spoke to me. The plants, the flowers, the trees. I could hear the consciousness of everything. And even how everything was placed in the cabin. it was like, okay, this stone can't be next to that stone now. And you might think, yeah, my God, this is really somebody going mad.
It's what it sounds like, obsessive compulsive disorder, right?
Yeah.
Where everything has to be in order, everything has to be in a particular place.
Yeah.
So unconsciously, you could say that condition is people receiving conscious instruction, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was divine guidance.
Mm.
And that divine guidance was guiding me on a daily basis on how to answer that telephone call from my ex or from somebody from my past life who I knew it was going to be traumatic again. And I didn't know at the time, but it was going to be another dose of gaslighting. And that was the only thing I had to self-source myself.
Mm.
And yeah, be in contact with nature and my power tools and this was the shamanism coming alive in me because it's the only thing I had left.
Yeah, that's a good point. You bring in the word shamanism. Because when I first met you, I had just finished reading the book Initiation, which is about this woman who lives her past Akashic life in Egypt. And I told you to read it, and then you told me your story, and you lived not just Egypt, but Avalon, Lemuria, and Atlantis. So I was like, okay, fuck. You've only gone and done one 4 times better than she did, so you probably don't need to read it. And I didn't really know much about you, but I find your story of when you were told you were offered the gift of shaman. Why don't you tell everyone that story?
Don't know if I'm ready to tell that one yet.
Not ready.
It's very private,
But okay.
But I did receive an initiation where I was gifted Path of the Shaman.
Yeah.
And I think the essence of it was seeing the responsibility of it and seeing the impact that if I didn't choose to receive that gift.
Yeah.
And the impact of choosing to not live that gift, which is essentially living your soul embodiment. We're all born with this as a birthright in our intrinsic connection with nature, but we're so disconnected from it. And here it was being gifted back to me in a way, because obviously I'd been through enough initiation in order to receive that.
Yeah.
And I could see the impact. First of all, the responsibility of like, oh my God, I don't think I can do that. But then being shown the impact. Well, if you don't choose to accept this gift, you're actually choosing to, go back into the matrix or, not live. You will not be able to live a soul aligned life. So then the choice became like, either you choose to not live a soul aligned life, or you choose the path to discover what it really means to live a soul aligned life. And I, because of the work with the shamans that I'd done, I also realized they'd also said, like, it's not easy. It's like the hardest thing you could do. So it's not like, it was like, oh yeah, great. It was like, oh my God, what am I saying yes to? So I guess sort of in short, that's what is okay to share about it.
That's yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I understand that's sacred to you, and we shouldn't share that. That's fine. But that's really an understatement when they say that it's a difficult path to take the road to shamanism, shamanship. Because as you and I have both experienced, there aren't many true shamans out there. Wouldn't you agree?
How to put this? I've understood so far from this journey how enticing that power is, and how you can get to certain levels and, for want of better words, steal that energy that starts to become available to you. But because of you not doing the work to clear your karmic rubbish, your darkness, the beauty of that gift then is not used correctly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And you can see it, and it's not a judgment. It's seeing it and feeling it as a vibration of truth.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about shamanism because you mentioned it is a gift, and it's a tremendously powerful gift that comes to you. You don't seek it. And I remember when I met you, you were very, like as I said earlier, very nonchalant about your gifts. But that was partly because you had been gaslit so much around your gifts. Isn't that right?
Yeah, gosh, all this makes me feel so. I'm getting so tense talking about this. My body gets tense talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think from being bullied at a very young age by people who I thought loved me or not.
Well,
Being
let
betrayed
me
by a lot of
ask it.
friends at school.
Let me ask it a different way to help you feel safe. Right. So, why do you think these bullies and people in your life have found it difficult to accept your gift?
The truth is that my light exposes the darkness.
Mm.
And I've learned that I always stand for and I always fight for love. And I'm learning that that is non-negotiable. But I have let my guard down and allowed people to doubt me in that in order to support their ego.
Mm.
And that's the profound gaslighting of the soul. And it's so damaging.
Mm.
And I see this in gifted people and they don't know it's happening.
Mm.
But they also don't know the purification process that they can go on in order to bring that gift alive in them.
Mm.
And it's such a deep wounding.
Yeah.
It's deeply, deeply painful.
Yeah. And this was all part of your initiation.
Yeah.
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 You had to go through the trauma of not being heard, not being listened to, in order to be heard and be listened to.
Yeah, yeah.
Just so you could share your voice now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was even told in the breakup, I can so hear the words. It was, well, I guess that love just wasn't enough.
Oof.
And I will never forget that. And that in itself stunned me into silence in that moment. Because for me, love is all there is. And it's
Wow.
that's it, you know.
Yeah. So you were essentially stunned by his complete and utter ignorance and stupidity.
Yeah, which those words don't even give it justice.
No, because everything is love. So to say it's not enough is like to say, yeah, I don't have words for it either.
Yeah, it's stunning, isn't it?
It's like to say water isn't wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm learning, and I've learned that, that's why I trigger people. I mean, they talk about truth tellers, triggering people. But I think it's deeper than that. It's those who hold the vibration of love. And it's not about, oh yeah, I've done this training, and I know how to love. I know how to love I know how to love myself, and it's like, okay, that's the beginning, but there's so much more to it. And then when you start losing who you used to be, which means losing parts of your mind that have been programmed as constructs of who you should be to fit into society, and box yourself in so that your natural gifts are tamed. When you start losing those cages, losing that being tamed, losing all of those constraints that prevent your freedom, you start getting liberated from the inside out, and you start being able to see in others who who has it or not. And it becomes a very lonely world. And they also talk about this in the shamanic path. Because, you know, and then I've been told so many times, yeah, well, just be humble, Hazel, just be humble and come down to earth. And it's like I've lost freaking everything. How much more humble do you want me to get to life?
Yeah. How can you come down to earth when you are the earth?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a projection.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And all of this, and slowly allowing myself to shed all of this and realizing, no, I'm safe. I'm coming home to myself. This is all part of me coming home to me.
Yeah.
So that I can live love, and I can live my gifts and share them.
Yeah. Okay. And so we'll finish on, how do you look upon that time now of what happened to you in those 3 months?
It's like the golden life awakes. it's
And explain what the golden life is to people.
it's like when you get to live at full capacity of who you are.
Like the Egyptians did.
Yeah. With all of your gifts awaken inside of you. Full consciousness, full awakening. And I see that time, I see deeply the darkness, and I see simultaneously the extreme light. And I can remember all the smells and sounds and feelings from that time. And I look back with great fondness, actually. It was so deeply, deeply painful, so deep. I mean, you met me after at the end of those 3 months, and that began a different journey, but it was the most excruciating thing I've ever gone through. But I look back on it and I really honor myself for having held myself through that.
Yeah, very brave.
Mm.
Thank you. So next time we speak, we'll speak about the next part, which is the best part, because that's when you met me. Okay, is there anything else you wanted to say on that topic?
Yeah, thank you for helping me share my voice.
Welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Until next time.